What if one scientific discovery completely changed everything we believe about life, death, power, and fate? Today's guest believes science fiction may be closely linked to our tomorrow more than we originally thought. Today's guest is the founder and CEO of Charles River Media. He's a producer, a director, a professor. This guy's a Renaissance man, co-host of the sci-fi podcast No Win Scenario, and also, I can name more stuff, international best-selling author of the sci-fi thriller The Ascendants. Don Schechter's here. Don, how are you, man?
I'm
you
doing
are a
great,
man. What don't you do, brother?
I'm just busy. It's all. I'd say it's all marketing, but I'm tired. It's a lot, but yeah, it's fun.
No, if you're tired, it's not marketing. It's for real. But thank you for being here, brother. I'm excited to get into the conversation we had in store today, and any pivots that might happen, because it could possibly happen with this kind of a topic. But you talk a lot about science fiction kind of predicting technology and even shifts in culture. I don't know how anybody can't see that that's a fact. All the years, if you lived as long as I have, which has been many, many decades, closing up on 6 decades, I've seen that shift. I've seen science fiction almost be predictive in a way. Do you believe that it's a tool to kind of prepare humanity for what's next, or is it a strategy for something else more sinister? How do you feel about science fiction as a genre?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I see it, yes, it's predictive, but I think what people don't always see it as, it's a rehearsal for the future. It's not just, oh, this new technology is coming down the road, let's tell a story about it. What good science fiction does is it rehearses our behaviors and our relationships to those upcoming technologies. And I can go down a long route here, but stay with me for a second, because this is like the heart of like what I'm looking at and what I'm doing now. So
Okay.
I've been looking and researching science fiction, and I love sci-fi as a kid. I got into it, so I'm the big sci-fi nerd and all that. And so I used to go. This is how old I am. I used to go to Blockbuster and rent every sci-fi film from like the 50s.
Oh my goodness.
And all that. I was that weird kid watching Plan 9 from outer space and thinking it was good. But if you look at science fiction stories from post-World War II, so the post-war, at first the stories were about fears about nuclear annihilation and aliens coming down to Earth and like indoctrinating our kids. So it was all about like communism and outside thought coming into that. Then as the decades progressed, you got to things like environmental concerns, right? Soiling Green, all those things, like how the world's going to end, because the environmental concerns were starting to tick up. And that was back in like the 70s and 60s. Then you have things, and again, a lot of what I do, even though I wrote a book, a lot of my lens is through film and television. You have shows like Alien Nation dealing with immigration and race, and Planet of the Apes dealing with race. And then what's really fun, and this is when I was like a teenager, we started approaching Y2K, right? In the 90s, and everyone was freaking out thinking, the world's going to end at the strike of midnight at 2000. The computers don't know how to represent 2000. So planes are going to fall out of the sky. All this invisible infrastructure that we didn't understand was going to collapse. So our stories were like the X-Files, all about this like invisible conspiracies that we didn't understand that were, gonna fall apart at the millennium. And a movie like Strange Days, which I take a lot of inspiration from in my own work, is I think the epitome. We also had movies and shows like The Terminator, when technology that we don't understand runs amok and starts trying to kill us all, right? That was our fear, right? Now it's a little bit different. That's what I'm getting to. But then Y2K happened and we survived. And so science fiction stories started to look backward, like prequels, things like that. But then 9/11 happened soon after. And prequels didn't feel right. And it wasn't about the upcoming apocalypse. The storytelling, at least in the United States, was all about, a lot of it was about, we just had the apocalypse and we've barely survived. What does it mean to be human when the apocalypse has already arrived, that has already been here? So like Battlestar Galactica, things like that, were stories. And then as we started to come out of that era, it became about religion. So a lot of sci-fi stories were science fiction at its core until the very end. And then there was a religious aspect. Oh, it's not really an alien or technology. It's a god or an angel or something. And that's when I start to think about my own sci-fi stories. And I didn't like that. That's not something I wanted in my own. And so where my work is leading us now is like, we are currently in an era of like rapid technological change with AI, right? So our stories, the stories that are coming out now, including my own, but I think other people's that I've been interviewing on my own podcast,
Okay.
It's all about not the technology is out of control and going to kill us, and how do we survive the technology. It's about the people behind the technology having maybe a nefarious plan all along, and their plans coming to fruition. It's about those billionaires or trillionaires who have a vision, who have a plan, and they use technology to change the way that we live, the way we think, the way we treat each other. And our stories are about rehearsing how we as people in our daily lives will respond to a future, which is a near future and maybe a future happening now, where those corporate entities, their plans are coming to fruition in a way that we don't necessarily always see or don't necessarily like, and they're radically changing society. So it's a long answer to your question. So I think it's both sci-fi is both a reflection of
Definitely a mouthful, sir.
what we're thinking, but also what, thinking about, and that's the heart of really what I do. It's thinking about what's life going to be like when in this new era. So I think we're in a new age of storytelling, new age of sci-fi, and that's really my point there.
Definitely, there's definitely a lot of story to tell, and definitely a lot of questions that are going to result from this, because it's stuff that we're thinking about, especially in the so-called AI era. I want to ask you a question about, I know that there is plenty of places to find conversations surrounding artificial intelligence, biotechnology, et cetera, et cetera. Here's a question I want to ask you from a personal standpoint, personal meaning that this is just your perspective on that.
Yeah.
We can go back to the 70s. I would choose not to in this case for lack of time, but it feels as though there's always been a question with a lot of people in my age group about people and machine. Will the machines outpace the people? Is our intelligence going to supersede what computers can learn and evolve into? Yeah. Your thoughts on the idea of humanity, not versus machine, but in conjunction with machine, and can we make something that we potentially be making something that will be too much for us to handle? I guess a direct question I could ask you. Can you answer
are we in trouble? The question is, are we in trouble?
I mean, you can bring it down to lowest common denominator. Sure, are we in trouble? But I mean, I always felt like, let me try to help out a little bit more by purpose in this. Back in the day when we always had this, we always heard this, the threat of the president pushing the button,
the bomb,
the one that makes everything go away. It's like, and we heard that for so many decades. And I always felt like from that, my takeaway was, in our attempt to innovate and be more creative and to build better and bigger and stronger and faster and greater, are we in trouble? Like you said. So your thoughts on that real quick, and we'll move on to something else.
It's hard to do real quick, but I think we're not in trouble because of this technology. We're in trouble because of ourselves, right? We're not in trouble because the nuclear bomb or nuclear energy was created. We're in trouble because of whether or not we have the safeguards to not launch it against people amongst ourselves. So I don't think, my personal take is that technology is not the issue, it's ourselves. So with AI, I think it's a great tool. I think it's an amazing tool. Will it get out of control? It's hard to know. That's up to us, and whether it's regulated and what our societal values are. So it comes down to how people use it, not the actual technology. Is it scary? Maybe. Is it moving faster than everyone else? Yes. Does it seem like it's going to be a living thing in 10 years? Maybe. But I don't think the technology is going to say, hey, you know what? Let's kill all you humans. I think if that would happen, that's at the hands of a human.
Fair enough.
And you can't take the genie out of the bottle once it's out. And technology is technology.
Yeah. That's something I think people are thinking about a good bit. One of the things that you talk about a lot seem to be pretty much a thread in all of your work is the whole idea of power. Who has it? Controls the information? How does it shape public belief? I mean, a lot of times I'm sitting here working at my computer and I got the news on. I'm not the biggest news fan in the world, but I try to just watch it, just see if it's something I need to be paying attention to per se. But from your standpoint, do you feel like we're more informed or we're just being more influenced? What do you think about that?
The answer is yes. I mean, generally, the answer is yes.
All right, Doc.
We are both extremely more informed. Yeah, we're more
like
informed, and we are being influenced. Yeah, we all live in our own bubbles, things like that. You know, I'm in the East Coast. I have a certain bubble of news that I like and I follow and I watch and I believe. And when something challenges that, you know, it seems fake or false or wrong. That said, we are so much more informed than we were. You know, I'm old enough to remember pre-internet, pre-YouTube. You know, you had to go to an encyclopedia to look something up or a dictionary. We can learn things so much quicker now that I think it's fantastic. We can communicate with people all over the world. It's fantastic. We can have conversations like this between two people that know each other in such an easy way and spread that message. So there's dangers of being misinformed, but I think it's wonderful how we're able to just learn so much from the technology that we've created. And again, it goes to your point, it goes back to power. Who owns, you know, the media organization, who owns the government that influences the media. So it's this horror, you know, it's this balance and this pendulum. And, you know, as long as we're moving towards more fairness in the long run, that's important.
I love it. Now, I've had to take a big sigh, a big breath in before I ask this question, because anybody that watches any of our content or work, you know, I'm a man of faith. I'm pretty solidified in that regard, but I do like to ask questions about faith and science.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people kind of see them as a one versus the other, the opponent, the head versus the tail. You know what I'm saying? The blue versus the red, or whatever it is. And I really feel like, if I'm getting it right, your novel kind of invites us to kind of embrace both, look at both in their respective places, and not so much as an opponent of one another. What do you think is the question that you believe people are most afraid to ask when it comes to this kind of topic?
Yeah, it's tricky because it's like you don't want to offend anyone for their beliefs and all that. So how do you comment on your perspective when it comes to religion?
Yeah.
And that's something when I started this book like 18 years ago, this story 18 years ago, it was all about, I wanted to comment about religion. Now, not about faith. I wanted to comment about religious extremism because this was like post 9/11. I'm originally from New York. You know, it was the Iraq War. It was about, oh, okay. I'm from Queens.
Okay, I know Queens. I'm from Brooklyn, but you know.
Oh, that's the opposite side of the world. You couldn't get from Queens to Brooklyn and Brooklyn to Queens. It was impossible.
You better believe it. You got that right. But go ahead, man. Sorry.
No. We'll talk about the Mets.
Oh, Lord. Okay.
So what was I talking about? So we're talking about religion. So, you know, I didn't want to. So what's great about science fiction is that you're able to comment about things without them being overt. I couldn't make this story. I couldn't make this corporation an overt religious institution. I couldn't say this was the Catholic Church or, you know, whatever it was. I made it a non-religious, a non-quote belief organization as a way that the reader could reflect upon the power that religious organizations have historically had power over people throughout time. So it's a very non-confrontational way for a reader who may be religious, may have a lot of faith, to think about, you know, their own personal faith, but also why do they believe what they believe? Is it because of what they've been told? Is it what your grandfather's grandfather decided was right? Or is it what about them as a person believes in the world? You know, do they follow strict rules because they think it's the way to live? Or it's because they've been so ingrained in it that they can't think outside of their bubble. So it's not in conflict with religion. But the book does provide commentary about powerful religious either institutions or just extreme ideologies. Forget religion, just extremism. It was really a reaction to extremism, you know, in the early 2000s, from my perspective.
Thank you, sir. Usually, one time it doesn't happen is if we have some kind of miscommunication between myself and my guest. But normally, on this show, we end our show with a mirror check of sorts. So here's yours. Every listener had to ask themselves one question about the future they're helping to create, whether it be technology, it can be leadership, you're well-versed in both, or just the choices that they make every day. What question would you want them to sit with, Don? What's the one question? You can take a second or two, or take a beat to think about it, but what's one question you want them to sit with?
I think it's a great way to end. I think part of the story of Ascendants, because it takes place in this like sci-fi world. There's this corrupt institution that has, seemingly proven the afterlife, and that really fragments society. But the ultimate story in the book is about this single mom and her 2 kids, and she's trying to raise 2 girls who become targets of this institution in this backdrop. And it's about a scientist who's haunted by the choices he made and how he couldn't save his daughter. It's about people. And so even though there's this technological backdrop, this sci-fi backdrop, the story and stories that we all love are about connection between people. So I think it's about having people take a minute to think about their surroundings, what they see as their daily life, what they see as like their bubble, their world, and think about how that influences how you treat each other and what your interactions with other people might be different or better if you take a step out and look at yourself from the outside in.
That's good, man. Thank you for jumping in here and sharing. It's been a fantastic, albeit brief conversation, man. Thank you for doing this today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was great.
Okay, you guys that are watching and listening, we have Don's information on the screen. It's also in the show notes in the comment section, so you don't have to try to chase to get to the screen and jot this down. It's ascendantsbook.com. It's also, like I said, it's in the show notes. If where you get our podcast from, you can find it in the comment section in the show notes. Thanks again for being a part of the conversation. If this episode resonated with you whatsoever, share it with somebody who loves thought-provoking conversations about technology and faith and leadership, AI, and the future of humanity, or somebody who's just concerned about their future. Reach out to Don. His information is in the comments in the show notes. You can find it anywhere. You can reach out to me. I can get it to you. Of course, subscribe to our show. They call me Mr. U, the flagship on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, or on Facebook, or wherever you get your podcast from. Leave us a review. Share this episode with somebody. Join us each week for more combos just like this one with Don. Don't forget, the difference between who you are and who you could be is always found in what you do every single day. That's Don Schechter. I'm Mr. U. Have a great day. Thanks for watching The Flagship. They call me Mr. U, the podcast. Great book, sir.